Good. Alright, so this part is the time and day. And so it's relatively simple when you think of the scheme of the earth and like the day and time and how things work. So we're going to kind of like set the stage. Your hand, your left hand, if you're right-handed, is going to be kind of like the ground. So if you think of it, this is going to be your stage, pretty much. So when you're talking about day, well, a day is pretty much when the sun rises in the morning and then sets, right? Well, because we can only rotate our arms so far, we kind of start middle of the day. So if you sign a D, or pointed finger, and you can do S hand, flat hand, just be careful, you know, that you don't move it. And you just sign that down, so here it comes like midday, noon, and then all day. So that's day. Night, well, night is when the sun goes down and it's dark, right? So over like where your watch would be, if you kind of cup your right hand over, that's night. Because it's going to be dark. It's going to be dark on Earth, which is here, so dark. So night. Morning, well, that's when the sun is coming up. So morning. So your hand's kind of like showing what the sun does. So there's actually a sign for sunrise. It's like your C hand is actually, the sun is rising. So this is Earth, and you see it rising up, or the sun is setting. So if you think about that, the day, or night, or morning. That's kind of how it is. Noon, or afternoon. Afternoon is kind of, here's noon, middle of the day, right? When the sun is like the highest point, that's noon, right? So that's straight up and down, noon. Well, afternoon is between night and noon, right? So it's kind of afternoon. So you could do it kind of afternoon, you can do it afternoon, wherever, like, however your right hand wants to be. Most times we just do it on the elbow, but if we're real lazy, we'll do it at the wrist. But afternoon. So noon. Well, noon is straight up and down because it's when the sun is the highest, right? Midnight is the exact opposite. So it's 12 midnight. So noon, you just turn your head to midnight. And you just do a 12 because that's when it's 12 is midnight. Time, you take your kind of pointed hand, bend on your watch. Time. So time. That's kind of we kind of use that without even knowing it. Time. Sun, the sign for sun, the most common one, their signs is where you draw the sun and you kind of show it coming down, or you just draw it. Some do coming up like this. Is there another sign you know of? Sign. So there's this sun, which I tend to use that one a lot. We haven't talked about grace a whole lot as signs, but there's 3 different signs for the sign for grace. We use, because Gladys prefers grace like this, but there's also grace and there's also grace. Because of that sun or shower, it looks like that. That's where we get grace, because grace is kind of showered on us. We just tend to do this hand shape because it's easier to recognize grace versus shower or the sun. But so I tended to use the drawing of the sun and the rays coming down just because it's more fun. The sign for moon is you take an L hand shape, and if you'll cup your, kind of bend your index finger, and you come up from your eye and moon. The way that you can remember that is like, it's kind of like a quarter moon, half moon, like your fingers kind of make. And if you're looking at it, you just kind of see it up there in the sky. That's a sign for moon. Stars is probably my favorite sign. There's this sign for stars, which is basically your 2 index fingers, and you're just going up. You're just showing the stars. Be careful not to do down, because that sucks. So, their stars are up in the sky. There's also a fancy sign for stars, which is freckles. It's a freckle sign. Take your 4 fingers and you bend them, or you can do 5, but I tend to do 4. And you just dot the sky. That's also stars. So if you're describing, so if you're going to talk about the star or stars, or if you're like describing a story or something, you're talking about many stars in the sky, you can literally dot the whole sky with stars. If you take that same handshake and you put it on your face, that's freckles, by the way. I have many freckles. So you have stars. We already talked about sunrise and sunset. Okay, so week, month, and year. These are the ones that get kind of tricky because they are hard to think of. So we're going to think of it as a calendar book. All right, so you've seen those little books that have like the weeks, the months, the years all in it. So if you have a calendar book, and you know how they have like a whole week laid out like on a page? Well, that's what the sign is. So if you take your number, like a number 1 hand shape, and you go across from thumb to the end of your fingers, that's a week. It's a week. So think of if you're flipping through your book, your calendar book, and you pick this week. So you're looking at this 1 week. Now month, well, it encompass this week and the next week and the week after, right? So it goes several times. Well, instead of signing this, which is kind of hard and awkward, what you do is you take your left hand, do 1, take your right hand, do 1, but kind of slide it down behind it. So the back of your right hand will touch the back of your left hand. That's 1 month. So you've got 1 week that just goes across 1 week, but instead of doing the first week and the second week and the third week, because that's just, I would get confused on which week I was in. It would just be easier just to assign 1 month. And that encompasses the whole thing. And then, yep, that's it. That's it. So, yeah. So you've got 1 month, a year. Well, it's not just a week, it's not just a month, it's everything, right? So you're going to take your S hands, take your left hand and put it out in front of you. Your right hand on top. And then you're going to go out away from you, down, back, and on top. So year. Yeah, year. So that's year. Not on here, but I've signed it a lot, so I was just going to show. Last year, it's year last, like last year. Or if you're just talking about 1 year ago, 1 year back. Or next year. That's because we're really lazy. But that's just, it's easier. Next year, last year, or year. This is the sign of a year. If you're trying to talk about many years, you can sign many year, or you can do twice. And that means more than 1 years. If you actually say 5 years, you can just do 5 years. But sometimes if you're talking, you're like, I don't know how many years. If it's more than 1, just kind of circle, or just sign it. So that's that. Because we've got good timing today, we're going to go on to the personalities and feelings. Because